The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast, back after a week of a lot of podcasts. Sam, how you doing?
And there's no rest yet. There's no rest yet because Olympic season is here and Summer League season is here, and we're going to talk about all that stuff. I'm good, by the way, Mike. Thanks for asking as always. But this has been, this is just kind of a fun summer for us. I feel like I usually, we're transitioning now from the early July stages of all the transactions happening at once into the mid-July kind of chill zone. Except this year, it's a little bit less chill, and there's actually, if you're the type of Suns fan who listens to this podcast in the summer, in the off season, there's going to be a lot of content for all of us collectively to consume in the coming weeks. Like literally, there's going to be a lot of Suns adjacently related basketball to watch. So it should be a really fun time.
We get to watch the best basketball players in the world and then the worst NBA players in the world compete at the same time in Summer League and the Olympics. I'm excited about both, honestly. I'm excited almost equally. Look, I have obviously a more vested interest in the Olympics overall because that's like the highest level of competition in that way. I've watched those players play a lot, so watching new players play is fun for Summer League. You know?
I don't care if it makes me sound like an insane person, but I'm probably as excited to watch Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro suit up for the Summer Suns as I am the book KD Olympic team. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited for that too. And there's a lot of stuff I think later on in this episode we'll talk more about the Olympics, training camp. I know Kellen Olson's there right now. Covering that in Vegas, which is really exciting for him. But yeah, we'll get there. But the Summer League Suns is what's going to happen first. And honestly, there's just something about that potential. You can always sell people on potential. And Suns fans have not had any potential really to latch onto anywhere on our roster in about 4 years at least. Was like the last time we had a real prospect. And even then it was Jalen Smith. So, this is going to be great.
We're going to talk about the Summer League roster. We're going to talk about the Team USA roster in a little bit, but we should first talk about the Suns roster because we took time off. Like we took four days off after recording, 6 podcasts in like a week and a half or whatever. And the Suns roster is still not complete. They still have, at the very least, one roster spot open, and based on your speculation on a previous episode, they were probably, at the very least, trying to do some more things, maybe looking for potential trades or options out there. We're assuming that's happening, right? Because things are sort of shaking out a little bit more. Since the last time we recorded, I think the biggest thing is DeMar DeRozan went to the Sacramento Kings, which, by the way...
yeah. Do you have
any thoughts on? Yeah.
I want yours first, actually.
I feel like they got better as far as talent, and it did not change their place in the Western Conference at all, in my opinion. But, maybe it works in that the fit works really well. In my opinion, when I think about the fit, it's not quite seamless. So I think there's a chance it takes a little while for it to really work. But as far as like actual basketball talent, I'm a DeMar DeRozan fan. I think he's been good for a few seasons, and I think he was particularly good this last year in Chicago.
I think
so. The team itself, their talent level went up, but it's just it's kind of a weird fit. So I'm interested to see how it works together.
DeMar is easily one of the easiest stars, if you still want to call him a star, which I think you can. He made a couple All-Star appearances in Chicago. He's one of the easiest stars to root for in the NBA. Now, maybe that's because he's never won anything, and so he doesn't have as many enemies as other stars who tend to get torn down once they reach the top rung of the ladder. But for DeMar, I mean, you're looking at a guy who's well into his mid-30s now and has still just found a way to stay consistent with his production, still has a killer mid-range game, improved enormously as a playmaker several years ago when he was with San Antonio, basically running their offense for a few years, then goes to Chicago, still gets to the free throw line even at his age, right? Like, I like DeMar DeRozan a lot. That said, my Galaxy brain take about this trade on Twitter was that the Spurs acquiring Harrison Barnes as part of the sign-in trade improved them more than getting DeMar improved the Kings. Now, I don't think that's a popular opinion, but the Spurs now have, and I've been kind of on the Spurs train for a little while. People make fun of me about it in Discord already. I don't actually think they're going to be like a plus 500 team, but they now at least have like several respectable NBA players. They've got Chris Paul, who can run their offense. They've got Wemby, who's going to be awesome. And now they have Devin Vassell and Harrison Barnes, who they can stick on each of the two wings. I mean, come on. Like, that's starting to resemble a real NBA team there. Like, it feels like they just have to try a little bit harder, and they should be able to win 35 games. I don't know. So, yeah, the Kings will be a playoff team, but I don't know that this was the move that will allow them really to get into the upper echelon of the conference. Maybe my opinion changes on that once we see them play. I like DeMar a lot. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's a really efficient basketball player. You know, it would just be so much easier for him to fit in any team context if he shot threes, and we know that's his one weakness. So there you have it.
And that's a team that really, their offense has survived with the combination of their two-star players because they shoot so many threes around them, eliminating some of those threes, but having a potential group of two, all-star-ish level players on the floor at all times could help them, like, in the aggregate, but like trying to imagine how they all fit together on the court at the same time, it's kind of a similar problem that the Suns had, except that the Suns players all have a higher level of talent, although you could quibble with the third best player on each team and who's better. It's just it's going to be an interesting team to see how it all fits together, and I like DeMar. I'm looking forward to watching them. As I always feel, I wish talent would stay on the East, and we wouldn't have to worry about it working, because if it does all click, if it does all work right away, that does make another challenge for the Suns in the Western Conference.
No doubt.
So we'll see how it goes. I'm rooting for DeMar as a person. He seems pretty cool. Cool week for him, too, being in the Kendrick Lamar video and then signing on a new team and moving back to California. Probably a good week for him.
I didn't see the Kendrick Lamar video. DeMar was in that? I was out of town for 4th of July. I feel like I probably missed a bunch of stuff there.
Yeah, DeMar's in it. He just kind of poses for
can I just be honest?
10 seconds.
This is not planned. It's nowhere in our outline. But let's throw a stick of dynamite into this and cause some chaos for a second. Does it bother you that? Well, how closely did you follow the Kendrick Drake beef? I know everyone was talking about it. I followed it from a distance. But I think like almost as unanimous as it possibly gets in people determining who won that beef. Does it bother you at all that here's DeMar on one side, he's hanging out with Kendrick, and both Drake and KD have been cited hanging out with Drake in the or both Book and KD, have been cited hanging out with Drake in the past couple weeks? Does that bother you at all? It's like our guys within the right to be cooked for that? Well, are they choosing the wrong side?
Well, I mean, as far as if it gives you grounds to cook someone, everything's up for grabs there, right? You can make fun of somebody for anything on the internet. That nothing is outside of the realm of ammo that can be used against somebody like that. But I think Kendrick won pretty unanimous. Like you said, it's unanimous. But who would you rather hang out with who would you rather go to a party with? Drake's probably at the better parties just in general. I think that's probably going to be more fun in general. Like, I don't necessarily want to be friends with him, but if you're at a party and Drake's there, it's probably a pretty good party. Like, he seems like that's what he does.
It's a great party in the sense that, like, it's luxurious and he's still, like, still one of the top names in hip hop or whatever, but, like, just there's so much
you want to sit down and have a conversation about high art with Kendrick Lamar at a party.
No, I don't know. It's not even that. It's just so much about Drake it doesn't feel authentic. And so when I see KD
you and I are on the record of not liking Drake on this podcast.
I haven't liked Drake, dude. I haven't liked Drake since can I say also I'm not like a hip hop head, okay? But I haven't liked Drake since like 2013. I feel like I've been on the same way.
I'm the same way. Yeah, we were on the right side of history as far as that's concerned.
We should move on and talk about the Suns' last roster spot because I think we just went on a tangent for like 10 minutes. But the Suns have a roster spot. And okay, here's how I want to do it. You were talking about the fact that maybe they were looking to do something with it. I think we got a couple of tangible, credible reports this week that would indicate that even though the Suns have this roster spot, they are still working to re-sign Josh Okogie. That process is in negotiation. By no means a guarantee, but they're negotiating. But there were also a couple of really interesting reports that I think flew under a lot of people's radars. Like they were only reported by like local reporters, not national big guys. That the Suns are going after other names. The one that I saw today that really interested me, obviously, was Barry Jackson, who I forget who he works for, but he's down in Miami, who said that the Suns and Bucks were among the teams to offer Haywood Highsmith contracts. But of course, both being apron teams, they could only offer Highsmith minimum contracts. And then Highsmith chose to stay with Miami today. He officially re-signed for 2 years, $11 million. So the Suns couldn't compete with that offer. But if any of you guys, if you listened to the free agency episode a week ago, Highsmith was on my list because he's a 6'7", like slightly heavier wing who's long and shoots threes, at least as of late in his career. And like the fact that the Suns recognize that as still being a need on their roster, I think you could ask yourself the question of when exactly did they extend that contract offer to Highsmith? Was it on July 1st or was it yesterday?
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting question to ask. But honestly, it would not surprise me if that contract offer came in like a day or two ago and that they're still looking at players right now as potential fits for their 15th spot, whether or not Josh Okogie comes back. And of course, Josh Okogie could come back, as we've said all along, and then you just, facilitate a trade for Nazir Little to some team that has cap room, or you cut David Roddy, quite obviously, like that's a very obvious thing that they could do. And then you have another spot for a Highsmith type player who they were evidently after. But for me,
you could still have Josh Okogie, yeah.
It's just encouraging to see, because like this team, I like Josh Okogie, I really do. This team does not need Josh Okogie. But I do feel that this team needs another 6'7" wing who shoots threes, who can maybe guard power forwards. And Josh Okogie just can't do that. A guy like Haywood Highsmith, now off the board, he could have. So it's good that they're at least, looking in the direction of other players like that. They recognize what's out there.
It does make me at least a little bit suspicious. It makes me wonder how interested the Suns actually are in bringing Josh Okogie back. It's not to say that the people reporting this don't have good information. I'm sure they do. But they also apparently made it, like the report for the Haywood Highsmith report, by somebody who there's no reason to believe that this person made this up or is lying. There's just no clout to be gained from this. It's like an actual newspaper reporter for the Miami Heat. The report was that they made an offer to Haywood Highsmith. They offered him what they could, which is, of course, a minimum contract. And then he was able to probably use that in some ways as leverage to get slightly more, not a lot more, but slightly more from the Miami Heat. And that means that they were willing to give that roster spot to someone else. Yeah, you did outline ways that they could open up another roster spot. There are ways to do that, which for the Suns is limited because they can't make a 2-for-1 trade. There are things that they can't necessarily do. There are things they can do to open it up, but they made that offer, meaning that they were willing to go into the season, I think, without Josh Okogie. We're assuming based on what we know from that. It's unfortunate. We are at an interesting point, I think, in free agency, and I think the best way to outline the point that we're at is the Oubre point, the point that Oubre has been at multiple times in his free agency. There was once when he was a restricted free agent for the Suns where he got nothing for a long time, and I think settled for less with the Suns when the Suns re-signed him.
When did he eventually do that? Was that August? Was it how deep
into
the process?
It was a few weeks, I believe, after free agency. But last year happened again, right? Free agency began. He didn't sign anything for a while and then settled for a minimum contract. And this is why I think the Suns are at an interesting point for them, because Oubre did not want a minimum contract last year, and I think played much better than a minimum contract player was capable of playing on his contract for the Philadelphia 76ers last year. So we're sort of at the point where a lot of the cap space is eaten up. Now, you look at the Utah Jazz, by the way.
Almost all of it, yeah.
The Jazz have all of it, basically, left.
Yep.
Now, so if you're a player and you're saying, I don't want to play for the Utah Jazz, you might have to sign for a minimum contract at this point.
Yeah.
So
you have to hope that a team that is not constrained by one of the aprons, thereby often not being a contending team, not in every case, that's not a one-to-one correlation, but a lot of the teams that can offer full mid-level exceptions at this point are non-playoff teams, right? So it's kind of hard for free agents right now who both want to make money and compete. There aren't a lot of options for you.
There are multiple second apron teams. The Minnesota Timberwolves, Phoenix Suns, Milwaukee Bucks, I think, are the main ones right now. Are there any other ones that I'm missing right now? Those are the three main ones, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So there are, outside of that, there are 16 teams that are also hard capped at either the first or the second apron. So there's actually a lot limiting a lot of these teams' flexibility. So it's 19 teams total that have some sort of limitations on the total amount of contracts that they're allowed to give at this point. Meaning there's just not that much to go around at this point of free agency. So, Haywood Highsmith got his deal. He was able to sign at more than a minimum contract. There's going to be guys that sign for less than that.
Yeah.
How good they are, I think, remains to be seen. We're going to go over some guys that are still left. But to me, the Suns have to kind of nail this last one if they can. Obviously, we're working in a situation where it might just be a Kogi, and it could be a Kogi half an hour after we post this podcast.
Yeah, but it kind of feels like you'd be disappointed if that was the case, right?
I personally would be, yeah.
I would be disappointed if that was the case, too.
Unless they have some sort of home run trade coming after that, which I don't know that there is one.
Which they would need to announce immediately after so that to stop me from going crazy. Otherwise, I'm going to go on a Twitter rampage, as I'm known for. I think you make a really good point, because also they could. It's first of all, Highsmith got his deal only because he re-signed with his current team. So obviously the Heat were capable of. They probably had his early bird rights, maybe not full bird rights, but they were capable of offering him more than other teams could have. A lot of guys don't want to stay with their current team, right? So that's just one less option that you have. If your only options are stay with my current team, go to the Utah Jazz, and then everyone else can give me a minimum deal, that doesn't sit right with a lot of players. But the other thing is, there's all these other guys who are available right now. Like, honestly, the Suns could sign Doug McDermott or Cedi Osman right now and be done with it, right? And they'd have a shooter on the wing. I brought up both of those guys in the last episode. But we're at a point in free agency right now, I think, to exemplify what you were saying, like, maybe why settle for Doug McDermott if I don't have to? Why settle for Doug McDermott if maybe in August or September I can get a desperate Saddiq Bey? Like, they could maybe stretch this out long enough and play hardball with guys long enough. By the way, I don't know if you view Saddiq Bey as better than Doug McDermott. I assume you do, given that he actually has like starting experience. I was just throwing him out as one example of like a guy.
How many 50-point games does Doug McDermott have?
There you go. I was just Saddiq Bey, one example of a guy who, like, if that's your 15th man or your 15th signing, like that's an incredible signing. So maybe if they play hardball with these guys for long enough, come August or September, they finally fill that last spot. And they get someone who is in a desperate Oubre-esque situation that then goes on to be one of the best signings of the summer. We have so much time between now and training camp. So there's really no need for the Suns to rush into it. And by the way, I do think another thing that was interesting, I mentioned Highsmith. The other report that came out this week that I think basically no one saw because it came from a EuroLeague reporter, and oftentimes there's not a lot of crossover between NBA and EuroLeague circles on Twitter. But EuroLeague reporter, I forget the name at the moment, I'll have to pull it later, but reported that the Suns had heavy interest in a starting wing, an American, 29 years old, Nigel Hayes-Davis, who plays for Fenerbahce Istanbul. If you know anything about the EuroLeague, you know that Fenerbahce is one of the, like, year after year powerhouses of the EuroLeague. They are always up there as one of the best teams in that league, in the second best basketball league in the world. And the Suns were hoping to poach this American player who's in the prime of his career there, who is, again, like a 6'8", 220, 225 pound wing, who apparently has learned to shoot threes over there in Europe over the past several seasons. One of the reasons that it fell through is because he didn't have an opt-out clause in his contract. Or at least, not one that would have made it easy on the Suns to initiate that deal.
No buyout.
But again, there was no need for this report. There was no clout to be had by reporting this, which lends me to believe that I should take it at face value. And between Highsmith and Hayes-Davis, two forwards who are of the exact same archetype, these 6'7", 6'8" type bigger wings, it really feels like the Suns are looking for a specific role to be filled on their roster right now. They're looking basically for the Nasir Little / David Roddy upgrade, and maybe they don't have to go after it right now. Maybe they can wait another month or two. But I think eventually, between now and September, they're gonna get one of their guys in that role.
Let's talk about the guys that are still left on the free agent. Let's cover these guys individually real quick and talk about what they could do if they sign one of these guys and how into it each of us would be. I have a list, and if I miss anyone that you have, feel free to bring it up. You've been doing a good job of keeping track of the guys that are still left, so I'm sure I've missed one or two guys here on this list. And I'm curious, what level of happiness you would be. Let's just grade it on if they signed this player instead of Okogie. Would you rather have them than Okogie, and how happy would it make you? That's kind of how we're going to judge these.
So we're operating under an assumption, let's say the Woj report comes in, and I don't know if Roddy is going to be waived or something. So I'm just assuming that this is the fifth.
This is the last guy.
That's fine. Yeah, let's do
it. Okay. I don't know where to start here, so I'm just going to pick a name at random. Davis Bertans was waived.
I thought about asking you about all the guys who were waived in the past couple of days. A bunch of guys were waived in the past couple of days who cleared the waiver wire and are now free agents, including, Davis Bertans.
So Davis Bertans, he's waived, and I think this is a good, this is the Okogie line that we're talking about here, right? Because he's essentially the exact opposite player of Josh Okogie.
Yes.
Josh Okogie can't shoot threes and is a great tenacious defender. Davis Bertans can barely move his feet, but has had multiple seasons where he's just lights out from three.
Can literally only shoot threes. Yeah.
That's all he can do. Yeah. So right here, you're just so in some ways I'm like, well, this team kind of needs a guy like that, just to come in and play off the bench. He's obviously, I think this is a case where if it's Bertans in particular, we're talking about a player that probably would not be in the regular rotation, but if there's wings that are missing, you need somebody who could shoot threes. Maybe Bud could figure out a way to make him useful in that scenario. And I think that probably with Josh Okogie, that's probably about where he's at too, where he's not going to be part of the regular rotation, but could play if guys are injured. Davis Bertans, how you feeling about that?
You'll recall 5 years ago when our YouTube channel was active and I was doing those free agency videos, I really wanted Davis Bertans once upon a time. That boy cannot move his feet though, and I think Doug McDermott I maybe would be willing to settle for. Bertans is a whole level of defensive ineptitude that I'm not sure I'm ready to sign up for. Just because I think it's funny, I'm reading his stats right here. He took 234 field goal attempts this season. How many of those do you think were from behind the three-point line? Out of 234 shots, how many were three-point attempts?
I'm going to say 175.
Good guess. The answer is 200. This is a 6'10" player who takes 80% threes. And the threes he takes, he chucks from random, release points and off the move and not off the move. And he still shoots 38% on them. So, he is an all-world shooter. But he might be just a little too cooked. Would
you rather have Josh Okogie?
I would feel neutral. If they brought in Bertans,
he meets the Josh Okogie line. Okay.
He precisely meets the Josh Okogie line. Can I counter that with another guy who just got waived recently?
Yes.
Alexei Pokusevski.
No.
Why no? Why is Bertans a maybe according to you, but Poku is a no? Explain that to me. Because Poku also shoots threes, but he also plays defense, and he's 22 years old, and I think he would probably not be very good, but maybe would be more useful than Josh Okogie if that's the line that we have going here. So just
Alexei Pokusevski shot 32% from three last season. You say he shoots threes, and I'm sure you're looking at his Charlotte numbers, which was 36% after he was traded or waived.
Yeah, after
I forget what happened.
Yeah, I think he might have been. Was it part of the trade? It might have been part of the Hayward trade. He was waived. No, it says he was waived.
I thought so. This is a fringe NBA player. This is Dragan Bender, this man probably
No,
won't be in the
I
NBA
think
at all
I
next
think,
season.
I think he's so okay. Not by much. I promise.
He
I'm
played
not.
28 games last year. That's how much he
promise.
was capable of playing. And he
Mike.
played for the Charlotte Hornets. He could
Mike.
still barely make the floor.
Mike, I promise I'm not Kevin O'Connor, but Poku is a little bit better than Dragan Bender. He is.
I'd rather have Josh Okogie.
Okay, that's fine. He started 25 games for OKC the year before last year, and his
Yeah,
stats,
but they were terrible.
his stats were pretty good. He shot 37%
That
from
was their
deep.
sneak tanking. That
He
was their
averaged-
sneak tanking.
No, they were trying to be good at that point already. That was not this past season, but the season before. They were already pretty good.
No.
Okay,
That
that's
man's
fine.
like,
You don't.
that
you
was
don't
one
want
of the
Poku.
most awkward NBA players in the NBA.
You don't want Poku. That's fine. But imagine having Poku and Bol Bol on the same team.
Okay, yeah, I get that would be funny, but not good.
Okay. Well, all right. Who's your next name if we're going through other guys?
Well, we already mentioned him a few times, so we have to talk to him in detail. Doug McDermott. This is a better version of the Davis Bertans, right? And because you put them together, and I think that's the right way to do it, because so did I in my notes when I wrote their names. They're right next to each other. But, Davis Bertans is taller. But in this case, it's not functional height because he can't move his feet fast enough.
He
for that
doesn't.
height
He
to
doesn't
matter.
rebound and he doesn't block shots.
Yeah.
So it's like he's tall
So-
for nothing.
Yes, so TFN. Doug McDermott, though, is a very capable shooter as well, but can do a little bit more in that if he has to drive, he can get to the rim if it's wide open, whereas Bertans, he's going to shoot. Like that's his only option here. Now, the question about Doug McDermott at this point is, does he have anything left? Because
Yeah,
he was
it's-
on a pretty bad San Antonio team, and then was he traded? I guess he was traded to the
Back
Indiana
to
Pacers.
Indiana, where obviously
Yeah.
he had some of the best seasons of his career several years ago.
And
so
then
I'm
he
sure,
barely played there.
yeah.
Didn't play much at all, where he averaged 4 points and, didn't exactly shoot great once he got to Indiana. So maybe that's part of why he didn't play well, 32%. But when he was in San Antonio, still shot 44% from three. Didn't play much there either, but that was in 46 games. So a big enough sample size that that shot's still there. Would have a small role on the Suns in this case. And I think this is one of those players where wondering whether or not you'd want them more than Josh Okogie is kind of an interesting question. Because it's kind of close for me in my mind. I think it's possible McDermott still has one season left where he could be pretty good. He's not like he's that old. I think he's like 32. Yeah, 32.
Yeah, 32. I would like him more than Okogie just because he fits the role better. I would not at all be confident in his ability to be more than like a 10th man in the regular season, right? Like I don't see him as he's going to be playing playoff minutes. But I think he could fill some minutes in the regular season and definitely provide spacing. As long as we're talking about guys who may or may not be cooked, though, can I bring up my next guy?
Sure.
What do you think of, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like the fact that you don't sign maybe Doug McDermott right now, because if you look at the free agency list, maybe there's another guy who will still be available a month from now. Do we think Gordon Hayward has anything left?
That's interesting.
Because
Gordon Hayward did not like his role on
In
OKC,
OKC.
last year.
No,
and
he
that
didn't.
is essentially what he would be doing here in Phoenix. But there is a point with a lot of these players where it's like you have to accept, we're going to talk about with Sadiq Bey in a second, where you just have to accept your place in the NBA. It's not where you expected it to be, but that's where it is.
So
and that's for Gordon Hayward. That's this season.
If this were a normal offseason, like I knew that Hayward did not like the role that he played in OKC, and he basically got played out of their playoff rotation. He did play in the regular season. He got traded there, didn't have a great regular season, didn't even have a good regular season with them, lost confidence by the time he was in the playoffs, and then eventually was no longer in the playoff rotation. Yeah. But if you just go back to his first half of last season, starting with the Charlotte Hornets, he averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists a game, like 47% from the field, 36% from deep. That's Gordon Hayward shit. That's what he's been doing for 12 years now. And I think I refuse to believe this is not a Doug McDermott situation, I don't think, where maybe he doesn't athletically have anything left to give, although he does have an injury history. I think it's just his role changed in OKC. They just didn't need him touching the ball that much. He lost confidence by the 15th or 20th game that he was there. And I would have to think that if he was willing to embrace a role somewhere else, that he still has probably a couple of solid years left in him as a contributing on the bench of some contending team if he wanted to choose that path, right? I didn't even think about Gordon Hayward a week ago, if you had asked me, as an option for the Suns, because I knew he didn't want to be in OKC, but I would have thought that by now someone would have scooped him up for like, you know, a taxpayer mid-level exception or something like that, right? Like I thought he was going to sign in the first week for $6 million somewhere. And the fact that he still hasn't has me wondering if maybe he'll get any offer like that at all, right? And if he could be the Kelly Oubre of this summer.
He's sitting there looking at the Jazz cap space, just licking his lips.
I mean, he could go.
They loved me there. They loved me there.
He could go and get $20 million from the Jazz. It's absolutely true.
They got to get to the floor. They're not even close to the floor right now. I think that if you talk, it's one of those things where if you're James Jones and you talk to Gordon Hayward and he's open to what his role would be on the Suns, then I think you have to consider it. I think the difference between what he would be for Phoenix than maybe he would have been specifically with OKC is that the Suns only have one point guard on the roster right now, technically. And there is a scenario where he kind of might have to be a backup point guard. Like if one of Beal or Booker is missing and now you have different guys shifted out of the starting lineup and then you have no backup point guard, you might actually need Gordon Hayward essentially to play backup point guard in that scenario or do some of the point forward stuff that he was capable of doing in the past.
It would look a lot better than having Eric Gordon run point guard, who's just a shooting guard in a point guard's body. Gordon Hayward actually facilitated his team's offenses at a pretty high level for, you know, a long time.
It's a scenario where with Hayward too, where he might die. Like his body's not in great shape anymore, but that's also why you might get him at the minimum. So, you know, like it's kind of what we're thinking about with Mason.
Well, it's also the thing where like if the Suns signed Hayward, like OKC fans, immediately would log on to the internet and be like, haha, Phoenix is settling for our scraps or whatever. And like you have to recognize there's a reason that the demand for him is low right now. You're getting him at the rock bottom of his career and hoping that you can reform him to a place where he is once again valuable for a playoff team. And that's a gamble, but it's also a gamble with Mason Plumlee, and it's also a gamble with Monte Morris, two other guys who both sustained injuries last year and are kind of at the low points of their respective careers right now. And it just seems to be in line with the general strategy of what the Suns have been doing thus far this summer, right? Where it's like, hey, let's take a guy who struggled last year and see if we can bring him back with the right system, the right identity, and get him to a place where he's basically a starting caliber guy who's going to be our 7th or 8th man, right? So, yeah, I wanted to bring up Hayward because I was like, I wonder about him. That's all.
Robert Covington.
I think he's cooked. What do you think?
I think you might be right. Yeah. There's something about like if you're talking about him over Okogie, like at the very least you would actually have a wing with size who could step in a pinch if you absolutely need it. Whereas Okogie, you kind of ask him to do wing with size stuff, even though he doesn't have the size, but he might still be better at it than Robert Covington at this point. Whereas Covington could like in small doses even play center. He's not great at it. It's just that he's just lost a lot of his athleticism over the last few seasons, and it's possible that, you know, he might not be that guy anymore. But
I just wish he was a little bit better.
I still consider it. I
consider it. I just wish he was a little bit better of a shooter because I could more willingly embrace the loss of athleticism if Covington was like just a guaranteed 39, 40% three-point shooter every year, but he's not, and he kind of never has been. Don't get me wrong, he absolutely is he's in a different world than Josh Okogie when it comes to three-point shooting. I think guys would actually guard him out there. But like even last season, I'm looking here, he shot 34%. He shot 40% the year before, but it's like not an every year thing with him. He's always kind of settled around 36, 37 in his career.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Jay Crowder, actually. I would, compare the two of those guys. Like wish he was,
I got him on the list too. So
I just wish he was a little bit better. Yeah, Jay Crowder.
This is my question with Jay.
Bey, who's Jay Crowder from 10 years
ago.
Yes,
of course. But would you rather have Jay Crowder or Josh Okogie?
I'd rather have Josh Okogie, dude. Jay Crowder's an asshole. Josh Okogie.
I'd rather have Jay Crowder, I have to say.
No, Josh Okogie at least is a guy who I feel good rooting for. I'm not letting Jay
Crowder's better at basketball, though.
I disagree. I disagree.
I think he is, man.
I disagree.
I think he's better at most.
Milwaukee traded 8 second-round picks for that man, and he gave them nothing.
And, the reason you probably can strike Jay Crowder off your list right there is when he first got to Milwaukee and he didn't play at all, the coach of the team at that time was Coach Bud. And I think that upset Jay Crowder. So I can't imagine Jay Crowder would be clamoring to play for Coach Bud at this point. But the Suns are in a much different situation than the Milwaukee Bucks were at that time. And they might actually need him more. I just don't think he would come here. But I think I would rather have him size, offense, basically everything except offensive rebounding. Jay Crowder is better at passing,
I think
shooting, screening, everything.
The way you conduct yourself still matters to me. Sorry to be so white collar like that, but a guy, I can accept a guy not being like the utmost professional if he's like really good. But Jay Crowder's not really good, and I'm not sure if he's ever learned that lesson. He's kind of a pest. I don't think he's a guy I want around in the locker room, to be entirely honest.
I get it. He caused a problem with the Suns in the past, sat out a whole season as a result.
Didn't get along with Devin Booker. Who doesn't get along with Devin Booker?
Well, we don't know that.
He's like the chillest guy.
There's no actual reports on that. You're making assumptions there, I think.
All right. Yeah, well.
But we do know that he complained about his role in Milwaukee after being traded there. So that's like an entire season where he had a problem with every team he was on, and he had multiple, including a team that traded a lot for him. So I understand what you mean, but I also think that he was excellent when he was in the rotation in Phoenix and did a lot for this team to help them be a better team. So I would still be happy to have him back if he was willing to accept whatever role they were willing to give him. And look where he is in free agency right now. He's a minimum guy now. We know that for certain, essentially, because he hasn't signed anywhere, and I don't think he's going to get any more than a minimum at this point.
He shouldn't.
So I would, at the very least, I would consider it. Do you have any more? We could cover Saddiq Bey, of course.
Yeah, Saddiq Bey we've talked about. Jordan Nwora is still out there. He still has the Bud connection. Yeah. I wish he was just a little bit better of a three-point shooter. But I do think he would probably be more impactful than a Kogi by like a hair. So he's out there. Otherwise, I don't really think I have anyone else at the wing position. The other thing the Suns could always do is, like, is there any world in which they're like, fuck it, we want another point guard. Kyle Lowry's still out there, right? Like,
yes, I do think there's a world for that.
I suppose they could do that. Then I would really hope that we're talking about cutting Roddy and opening up another spot for a wing that would be an upgrade there.
You'd have to start Kyle Lowry, though, right?
I don't want to do that. Or like, what's going on?
But you kind of have to.
What's going on with Tyus Jones, man? I've talked about it already, but like, true. Tyus Jones, who's going to sign this guy? Imagine if the Suns, Tyus Jones and Monte Morris already played together in Washington, and I actually don't know what their relationship is. But like, it was really funny in Washington that those two guys were like the two best assist turnover ratio guards in the entire league, and they played for the same team. Now, that Washington team sucked. But, with the right players around them, not Bradley Beal and Kyle Kuzma, but Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant, maybe it works a little bit better.
I do think that's a player that's destined for the Utah Jazz to sign him in order to trade him later.
Yeah.
Right. Just sign him to $15 million.
Well, okay. And should we
hold him hostage for 3 seasons until they could get 2 first-round picks from a desperate team?
Real quick, because I can already tell we're going long here, and we're going to want to be able to talk about both Summer League and the Olympics. So,
I have a couple fake trades I want to throw at you.
I think we should get to those trades now is what I'm what I'm saying. But okay. Do you have any other free agent names?
Chetty Osman, we've talked about multiple times, but I'm just curious if you feel any better or worse about him than Josh Okogie at this point.
He'd be better than Okogie because he's a little bigger and he shoots better.
He's a little bigger. He shoots better. He's a lot bigger as far as height. He's listed at 6'7", and he shot 39% in San Antonio last year, 37% in the previous year in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think
he shoots a lot of bad shots. He's even had a season a few seasons ago in Cleveland where he shot 30%, but most of his career has been better than that. I don't think he's like a great shooter, but I think he's a good shooter that's willing to take a lot of threes. And I think in Bud's offense, they might value that more than a Josh Okogie. Just based on the guys.
How about this? How about this for, I think you're absolutely right that Bo would have to sit him down and say, hey, don't take dumb shots. Look at the guys, who you're playing next to. But if you can get him taking the right shots, I'm looking at his page right now. 3 years ago in Cleveland, 42% from the corner. 2 years ago in Cleveland, 43% from the corner. Last year in San Antonio, 46% career high in the corner.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
You just stick him in the corner, tell him to take those shots. That Josh Okogie's not giving you that.
Okay.
So yeah,
we're going to talk about Team USA. We're going to talk about Summer League in a second, but let's just talk a little bit about some other things they could potentially do. We're talking about them, maybe still making moves on the fringes. I'm curious if we'll start here. I didn't even have this on my list, but I thought of it earlier when we were talking. But Harrison Barnes makes less than Nurkic. And Harrison Barnes is currently on the Spurs. Do you think it's possible that's not the future of Harrison Barnes at this point? If basically not factoring anything else into this, not factoring what it would cost the Suns outside of Nurkic, would you be interested in trading for Harrison Barnes instead of Nurkic, meaning you'd have to essentially start Mason Plumlee at this point?
I think that's interesting. We're assuming, by the way, here that if the Barnes sign and trade finalizes and the Suns haven't negotiated this yet, then this is a trade that has to take place like close to like September, October, basically, right? Because you can't trade a guy twice in like a week. You have to wait a while.
Yeah.
I think
you can trade a guy as long as you're not aggregating anything with him, by the way. I think that's what the rules are. You can trade individual players after they're traded, but you can't attach anything to them.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, I believe
I'll
so.
I'll take your word on that. It's fine.
Do you think the Suns are better or worse after that?
Do you have Barnes starting instead of Grayson Allen, presumably?
I think he kind of would have to start.
He's going to start
Barnes
at small forward? And then is he now taking your toughest defensive assignments?
Yeah, and he's not as good at defense as he used to be. Yeah.
It's still kind of a hole there.
Yeah, I kind of think it is, but it's a taller hole, right? That's the question. And also, you have a little bit more shooting at that height, which is nice. He's capable as a shooter. He's a pretty good, just in general, a pretty good offensive player. Not a great one, but he doesn't really impact your offense negatively when he's playing a role, which he very clearly would be on the Suns. He's not expected to do a lot in that starting lineup. I don't know if it's great or not. I just wanted to throw it out there. I don't think you trade 2031 for him, right? That's something that you could just kind of take off the table. It's not really worth it to trade a first-round pick that could be a high pick in a future draft for somebody like Harrison Barnes. Wow. So if that doesn't get him, then, if the 2 second-round picks the Suns owns do, then maybe it's worth it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
curious to know.
I don't think you trade a first for him either. That's a second-round pick guy. Maybe. My wow, by the way, was Barnes played in Sacramento for 5.5 years. The last half decade flew by, man. It did not feel like that for some reason to me that he was in Sacramento for 5.5 years. He's been in the NBA for a long time now. It feels. I
think we're at the point where Grayson Allen's probably just a better player than Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but that is just we're talking about in a vacuum here, and the idea of starting a bunch of guys who are 6'5" or under, maybe it still is better to have a 6'7", 6'8" guy in there, and maybe that overall has a more positive impact on your team, even though Grayson is probably better at basketball. Or maybe it makes Grayson Allen a little more available in trades as early as, right before the season starts, and then you can look to fix your center position with Grayson Allen or find ways to better solidify other positions with him. So
I will say not that coaches play all bench lineups anyway, unless they're Monty Williams, but being able to bring off of the bench as your first 3 guys. You like that one? Monte Morris, Grayson Allen, and Royce O'Neal as your 6, 7, 8, or in whatever order. I'm just listing them as the guard forwards. Bull. I mean that kicks ass. That kicks ass.
And Ryan Dunn is fun in that scenario.
That's really good. Those are really talented players who you're bringing off the bench. The only question is, can Mason Plumlee plus whatever small ball minutes you have hold up at center? I don't really think it can.
That's the big question.
You got to get someone else in there.
I think you're probably right. I think Mason Plumlee, if you try to start him at center for an entire season, he might not last. He's just a little old for that. So I think that's a good point. I have a couple more trades. Do you have?
Well, I was just going to mention the Utah Jazz again. I was going to say if we need to open up another spot and they don't want to waive David Roddy, because then if you waive David Roddy, you still have to pay him. And if you pay David Roddy an extra $2 million plus whatever you're giving to the guy who occupies that newly created spot, that's more than $2 million in luxury tax penalty for Ishbia. Now, this might be something that Ishbia doesn't care about, but another path would be to salary dump Nasir Little to the Utah Jazz, who, as you pointed out, are well below the salary floor. And under the new CBA, by the first day of the season, or maybe it's the first day of training camp, I can't remember, first day of training camp, first day of the season, you need to be at least 90% of the salary floor, or your team is going to be penalized as well. And if they just need to take on extra salary, Nazir Little makes $6 million. Maybe the Suns don't want him. Maybe the Jazz can even throw in a second-round pick of theirs somewhere down the line. Do you think that's asking for too much? Make it a protected second-round pick? I'm just saying.
No.
It feels like something the Suns could do, but also feels like something that maybe a million other teams will be trying to do because the Jazz are the only team in this situation, right?
Like if you're talking about a scenario where the Suns could now sign Sadiq Bey and Okogie, like you get both of those guys, kind of feels like it might be worth it, even to get rid of a second-round pick. If it's Davis Bertans that you're filling that roster spot with,
you don't do that for Davis Bertans.
Yeah, you have to have a free agent lined up that makes it worthwhile to sacrifice a second-round pick. And the trouble with the Suns is they can't sign any of these guys for multiple years. I mean, technically they can, but they probably won't because most of these guys, when it comes to minimum contracts, you're probably just going to give them 1 year unless you're doing the thing they did last year with an option. And in that case, if you're sacrificing a second-round pick for one of these guys, they're probably too good to sign a 2-year deal anyway. So how much is it worth it to you? And maybe there is a scenario where it's worth it. I don't think that's the worst case. Let's say Nazir Little and 2 second-round picks for Corey Kispert. Would you do that?
Yeah,
I think I would too, but would they do that is the question, right? More than would we do that? Because, of course, we would do that, but I don't think they would. I think they probably think they could maybe get a protected first-round pick or something for Kispert at this point. But you would, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kispert's just, again, really good. Like, if I can bring... Well, I guess it begs the question again of who's starting. It's probably still Grayson starting in that... Like, Kispert's not a starter. Yeah. He would just be an awesome bench player who would shoot 1,000,000 threes. He'd be like a way better Eric Gordon.
Yeah. And he's more capable, I think. He's good at threes. I think he's a capable offensive player all around. He can attack closeouts a little bit. He can make the right reads from that a little bit. Like, none of this is great. Otherwise, you couldn't get him for, I'm not even sure you can get him for 2 second-round picks. But if there's a scenario where you could, I think it's worth it. You have any other? I have a couple more.
I don't have any other trades, so
okay.
Fire away.
Would you, now that DeMar DeRozan is gone from the Chicago Bulls, why do they need Torrey Craig? Nazir Little for Torrey Craig, straight up. I have to bring it up. Nazir Little for Torrey Craig. Maybe they want Nazir Little now. Or like maybe they're like, okay, we could do that. I don't know if they have the space to absorb his contract because Torrey Craig is making such a small amount of money. But if they're shifting to a place on their team where they're trying to develop young talent, which I think they probably are, or if they're not, they should be. They don't need Torrey Craig, right? Torrey Craig was there because he was friends with DeMar DeRozan, from what I know. They don't need him now. I mean, would you do that? I'd do that in a heartbeat. Like, I'd do that right now.
I am in full support of this because I think it's funny.
I mean, David Roddy, you could do it with David Roddy too, but I'm saying that maybe they would do it for Nazir Little.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. I don't necessarily think it makes the Suns that much better, but like
Torrey Craig's better
James
than
Jones,
Nazir Little.
Sure, maybe. I mean, just having James Jones slam, imagining James Jones sitting in his office, his high-level executive office, overlooking the Suns training facility, and on his desk he has a big red button that just says Torrey Craig, and I'm just imagining him just slamming the Torrey Craig button over and over again anytime this team runs into roster issues. Sure. Yeah, let's get Torrey Craig for a third time. Why not? If Nazir Little is the cost, that's nothing.
One more. The Utah Jazz, we talked about them a lot. They have a bunch of cap space. This is not a scenario where we're utilizing their cap space, this fake trade. They have been in a lot of rumors for potentially wanting to trade Lauri Markkanen, which I think they're just trying to utilize the last bit of leverage they have with Lauri Markkanen and try to extract as much as possible from a team. Right now, multiple first-round picks seems like their goal. Up to 3 is what they're supposedly asking for. But what that tells me is not just necessarily that they're willing to trade him. It's just that they're willing to like shift to a scenario where they're just going to be bad and embrace being bad and not do that thing where they're 500 after a few weeks and then they bench everyone who's playing well or trade everyone who's playing well and then try to tank and then not have a high pick because they waited too long.
Miss out on Cooper Flag or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Who, by the way, we're going to talk about him in a second, but
yeah.
So here's a 3-team trade I came up with, and I'm just curious if you would do it. And it's names that we're all familiar with here. This is Nurkic and the 2031 pick, because that's the only way this works, going to Utah, and Colin Sexton going to Orlando.
Oh.
And then Wendell Carter Jr. to Phoenix, which means the Suns are shedding salary in this scenario It does. I believe it's legal. There's probably things you can do to make it legal if it's not currently legal. It's more of a thought experiment than anything else because it's not going to happen. But
Sure.
we talked on a previous episode about using Nurkic in the 2031 pick to try to find a quote-unquote point guard for Orlando. Now, this is not necessarily a point guard, but it's somebody who is capable as a ball handler, can play a point guard, a good defender at the guard position, and doesn't necessarily take the ball out of the hands of the best players on Orlando, Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, so they could have a starting lineup that's essentially Franz, Paolo, Sexton, KCP, and whoever they want that last guy to be, Suggs, if they want to play Paolo at center, or they can play one of their two centers that they have currently signed, which is why I keep bringing up Wendell Carter Jr., because they signed Goga and they still have Mo Wagner.
Right.
So they have multiple centers already that they paid. Not a lot, but they paid. And then Paulo is got to play some minutes at center. That's what he did with Team USA, and that's going to be a future for them. So what do you think?
I really like the effort that you put into this one. This one's nice. It's a little outside the box. The question here for the Suns, of course, is that one first-round pick that you have worth, upgrading, quote-unquote, upgrading from Nurkic to Wendell? For Wendell, you got to project forward a little bit of improvement in the next couple seasons because he is only 24 years old. But I think also, and again, trying not to think about this in a Robert Sarver kind of way, but if this trade is legal, which you're telling me it is, what does Nurkic make? 17, 18?
18. Yeah.
He makes 18. Wendell makes 11. That's kind of a big difference in the Suns' ability to cut their tax bill, yes, but then maybe in the future even get out of the second apron like a little bit with a little bit more flexibility. You know what I mean? And like once again gain access to some of their exceptions and other moves that they'd be able to do, or maybe dip their feet out of the second apron so that their future first-round picks 8 years from now aren't automatically moved to the end of the first round or whatever based on, those other restrictions. I think this could be interesting. And then, like, the biggest thing is just I think Wendell would be a better fit probably for
Wendell,
this team.
by the way, Wendell is oft injured, just to put it out there. So, in the past few seasons, 48 games last season, 54 games the season before that, 61 games the season before that, and 22 games the season before that. I'm sorry, I'm reading his starting numbers. 55, 57, 62, and 22 in the last 4 seasons. So just not a ton of games played, so you have to factor that in to who he is. He's never had a full season played fully healthy. Just often plays 50-ish games, which the Suns are having problems dealing with that. But last season, 3 3-pointers attempted per game, 37% from 3. Can you build on that? Can you find a way to Coach Bud him, right? Turn him into a 5 or 6 3-point shooter a game and leave that percentage at 37%. Now you're building some more space on top of that.
Yeah.
Is
also,
it perfect? No, you're sacrificing that first round pick, but you're getting off of Nurkic's money over the next 2 years. You're saving some money in the short term. You're giving Orlando a player that they could want. I'm not sure if they have the cap space to do this, by the way. So that's where I think it might not be legal is with Orlando, but I think they could probably do it in one way or another. And it's just it was one of those things where I was trying to find maybe where there would be a guard available, and the Jazz are just so interesting right now because do they want Colin Sexton long term?
they shouldn't.
I don't really know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
He's not been in rumors to be traded, but that would make Orlando so fun, by the way. That would be really fun to watch in that case. So had to throw it out there. I'm glad you liked it. The question is, and I'll just summarize it with this for you, is it worth getting rid of the 2031 pick to you?
Yeah, you have to really believe in the identity that you're creating because then you can play 5 out, right? Like now we can run Bud ball. Also, the Magic were really good at defense last year. That was the whole reason they were a playoff team. And I don't think Wendell
they're huge. Yeah.
It was, their offense was not good. Their offense sucked.
Yeah.
Like we're projecting that one day Paolo and Franz will be efficient offensive players. They are not that yet. They have time to grow, but they are not that yet. And Wendell, I wouldn't say was the exactly a traditional defensive anchor and like the reason they succeeded on the defensive end, but certainly the fact that that's their starting center and they were second in the league in defensive rating, should be evidence that you can build a foundation around him on both ends of the floor. So That would be compelling, man. Honestly, it would be pretty compelling. I mean, it probably, gives you a real chance to compete this year.
All right, let's talk about the two things that are happening over the summer. That's the Olympics and Summer League. Let's just quickly touch on the Olympics. There's not much going on right now Olympic-wise, but I did want to mention it because, first of all, Kellen is in Vegas. Shout out to Kellen. And he's doing a great job covering what is the beginning of this Team USA experience. They're running their camp right now, and then, of course, they're going to be on their way to Paris very soon. Two Suns players there. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. That's why Kellen is there, and he's getting lots of great content. I'm going to read out the roster real quick, and then we could just talk about it a little bit. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Drew Holiday, Bam Adebayo, and then, of course, Devin Booker. It's a really good team.
That's a sick roster, man. I mean, to think that
so good.
There's 12 guys on that team.
Yeah.
There's only 40 minutes in a game. To think that, two of those guys are going to be the 11th or 12th men who play 6 minutes a game, right? Because someone has to be. And I don't even know who that is. Probably Bam and Drew. But honestly, maybe not even, because those guys play really important roles of just playing defense.
And Drew was so good in the last Olympics.
Right. So that roster is crazy. I can't believe this is the team we're sending. And I just really hope they don't embarrass us. I have kind of weird feelings about Joel Embiid suiting up for America.
I get it.
I don't hate Joel Embiid, but I do feel like he's gonna do something. He's gonna do something. He's gonna try and flop his way a little bit on the court.
He already did it in their scrimmage. He was flopping.
I didn't see any clips of that, but they're just the FIBA officials or the Olympic officials.
They're not going to give it to him. Yeah.
They're not going to go for it, and maybe that won't matter against Puerto Rico or Germany or whoever is in our group. But it's just interesting that he's on the team.
Does it matter to you if Devin Booker starts or not?
No, doesn't matter. I know he'll play. I know Book is not going to be one of those guys getting 5 minutes a game. So as long as he and KD are playing, and of course with KD, the issue right now is a calf strain that's holding him out.
Yeah.
That's the other thing though, is that if KD is not 100%, then he should be the first guy volunteering to not play. Because there are so many other talented players on that roster who could just go out there and do the work for you, bro. Just give Kawhi more minutes. Just give Tatum more minutes. There's plenty. LeBron. There's plenty of other forwards on that team. So obviously, I want to see KD represent his country again. I know that the scoring record matters, is valuable to him, that he already has, and he wants to build on. But we want you healthy for the season here.
I think KD's going to start. We can just assume that if he's healthy. With Booker, I think the willingness that Booker has to not. He's like, I'll be Drew Holiday when Drew Holiday is not in, or whatever. That. That's just sort of where he's at.
Book
as far as how he's willing to play, and I think that's going to help him to get minutes. He's probably not going to play a lot though. There's so many good players on this team. There's not going to be a lot of guys that are playing a lot.
Book is the anti-Anthony Edwards on this team, where it's Ant is. I don't know if you saw the picture they took of the entire roster today, but Ant's all the way in the back corner next to the assistant coach, Coach Spoelstra. And it's Ant views himself as the number one guy on this roster, and yet they're putting him there in the back corner, but he's got this ego about him regardless, right? Book is in the middle of that picture. Actually, if you look at that picture,
sitting next to LeBron.
He sat next to LeBron James. He's literally LeBron's right-hand man, I think, in that picture. And yet he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that ego. He'll be happy to go out there and play 12 minutes a game and get up and down.
He just wants to win
and shoot a couple threes. He just wants to represent his country and win.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that's how he played last time. He found a way onto the court just by playing solid defense. The FIBA game is different. It is different. You need to find ways to win regardless, and I think he's willing to do all those things. Very excited to see him on the court with LeBron James and Steph Curry. I really hope we see some minutes with those three on the court together. That just sounds awesome. It's something that other than All-Star games where it's not actual competition, we've never seen those guys share a court together. So Steph Curry and LeBron James didn't play in the last Olympics. They were injured. So we actually have the opportunity to see them all together. Sounds pretty sick. I'm pretty excited to see them on the court together. I'm just very excited about this team. It's so good. It would be an absolute disaster if this team didn't win gold.
Yeah,
just
it would be
a disaster.
really,
They're so good.
It would be really
It's
fun.
It is crazy to read that roster out loud, but I'm going to read another roster out loud to you right now. This is the Suns Summer League roster, and obviously this is a different thing. But Jalen Bridges, Boo Buie, Michael DeVoe, Ryan Dunn, Robert Franks, Oso Ighodaro, Logan Johnson, Matt Lewis, Malik Osborne, David Roddy, a surprise, Tyrese Samuel, Tyson Walker, Mason Walters, Quindary Witherspoon, and Isaiah Wong. This is
An
the Suns
All-American
roster that they're taking into
Summer
Is it?
League. I believe it is. Yes, I think there were flags next
Team
to each
USA,
guy's name.
huh?
It could be
We got
Team
two
USA.
Team USAs.
It's the B team of Team USA is the Suns Summer League squad. Usually there's at least a foreign guy somewhere who sneaks in, but not this year for the Suns. It's all Americans, and there are at least several guys on there who we anticipate being on the roster at least as two-way contracts, if not full-time contracts. So we've got Roddy, obviously, who played with the team last year, was a surprise to see his name on. But I think, he kind of honestly is auditioning for his NBA life here a little bit. Not usually a good sign when you're his age and you're still suiting up for Summer League. But we do have Roddy there. We've got Ryan Dunn. We've got Ighodaro. We've got Jalen Bridges on the two-way contract. Boo Buie is, in addition to a really fun name to say, Baba Booey, I think it's like a interesting prospect who I believe holds the scoring record at Northwestern, I think is what I saw. And also the Suns immediately scooped him up on the night of the draft, signed him to an Exhibit 10 contract. And yeah, I think he's going to get some heavy minutes as one of the guards for the Summer League roster as well.
Yeah. No Colin Gillespie. I think that's the
No Colin Gillespie. Yeah, that did surprise
me. But he just, for those who don't remember, or maybe missed it because we recorded so many podcasts in the last few weeks, he did just come off of almost averaging a triple-double in the G League. I think he probably would have dominated Summer League at this point. And they're probably going, well, maybe he doesn't need to play Summer League. Like he has experience playing against NBA level talent and maybe they don't. But, I kind of wanted to see them with a really solid point guard.
Yeah.
And I think, Isaiah Wong is going to be somebody who's probably capable of doing some of that.
He was with
and
the
Boo Buie is
Pacers.
more of a scorer, but is also another guard. But Isaiah Wong feels like a point guard that's going to try to organize this offense pretty significantly.
Yeah, Isaiah Wong was a two-way guy with the Pacers last year. So there's a couple other guys in here who have some level of NBA experience. NBA experience. Quindary Witherspoon is probably the most classic example. I know the Suns just got his G League rights, so that's probably why he's there. But he's played multiple years in the NBA. So yeah, there are real players here, and it's fun. And I think it's also no surprise, by the way, that the Suns are leaving one of their 3 two-way contract spots open, at least for now, because it feels like the net result of this Summer League team may very well be, if you're one of the guys who's not already signed to a contract with the Suns, you're basically competing for that final spot. So it could go to a Boo Buie or an Isaiah Wong or whoever else performs well in a couple weeks. Actually, not even a couple weeks. It starts this Saturday.
July 13th. I have the schedule here. Yeah. July 13th, Phoenix at Golden State. That's on ESPN 2. So that one everyone should be able to watch if you have ESPN. July 16th, Pacers at Suns. These are all in Vegas, right? The home team is all irrelevant. But 4 p.m., I think these are Eastern times, by the way, is on ESPNU. Maybe I'm wrong. Then we have July 17th, Suns at OKC. That's on NBA TV. And then July 19th, Bucks at Suns, also on NBA TV. Sam, we're going to watch those two on playback?
So a little bit of a problem. I will not be available for the 19th. Because
I will watch both of those games on playback.
I will be going overseas at the end of this month.
That's right.
But at least the 17th I can do with you, and it would be fun to do those two streams on playback.
We're going to be around we're going to watch all 4 of these if we can, if they're available to us, as long as they don't come at inconvenient times as far as our work schedule. But we're going to watch them as much as we can and cover them as much as possible. I'm very excited to see Ryan Dunn. I'm very excited to see Ighodaro, who I think Ighodaro could kind of rock on Summer League. I think he's actually going to be pretty awesome. It's kind of built for a player like him.
I think
and
we
then,
might
of course,
have
Jalen Bridges.
I think there's a serious chance that we have the number one defense in Summer League. And I know there's all 30 teams. Like that's probably a lot to ask. But if they're starting Bridges, Dunn, and Iguodaro, if those three guys are starters, like, yeah, they should defend their asses off. And I think they might really struggle to score at times. But, so it'll be a mixed bag.
Gillespie would have helped a lot.
Look, there are other teams that are sending multiple lottery picks and, guys who just finished their first and second NBA seasons to their Summer League rosters. So just because the Suns can finally field a competitive team doesn't mean I'm expecting them to go home with the championship. But I'm just excited to see these young guys play. And, yeah, defensively especially, get ready to see them shine.
Yeah, for those who don't remember, it's a couple of games that set the seeding, and then there's a tournament at the end. So there's 4 games for sure. There could be more. It's possible they'll play more, depending. I think up to 2 or 3 more, depending on how the tournament shakes out at the end of Summer League. So lots of games to watch, lots of things to cover over the next few weeks. So stick around. We'll be around to cover the Olympics. We're going to watch as much as we can there. We'll be around to cover Summer League. We'll watch as much as we can there as well. So stick around, listen to us every week. We'll be back next week next week for sure with another podcast. I know you're going out of the country. I'm going to be moving at some point, so we're going to have a little bit of time we might have to take off, but we're going to still do as much as we can.
Yeah, busy summer for both of us, but we'll deal with it as best as we can. Thank you for everyone who's still active on Patreon, listening to our episodes when we do release those in Discord. We're going to do our best.
Which will be this week.
Yes, yeah. We're going to continue to release Patreon episodes, even though it is the off season, and be in Discord and all that stuff. So thanks to all you guys who are part of that community, even in the off season.
Yep, we appreciate all of you. We'll be back very soon.